What if I told you that every human on Earth could suddenly breathe underwater tomorrow? No warning, no training, just wake up one morning and realize you're basically a failed Aquaman. Welcome to What If Horizons, the podcast that dives headfirst into the impossible and asks, but what if it wasn't? Picture this: you're brushing your teeth, half asleep, when you accidentally inhale a mouthful of water. Instead of choking, you take a deep, refreshing gulp, like a reverse espresso shot. At first, you assume you've finally lost it from binge-watching too many mermaid documentaries. But then you hear the screams. Your neighbor is standing in his shower, hyperventilating, not because the water's cold, but because he shouldn't be able to do that. The first few hours are chaos. People test their new skills by dunking their heads in toilets, for science, obviously. Social media erupts with shaky footage of accountants belly flopping into swimming pools and resurfacing with the smug grin of someone who just unlocked a cheat code. Meanwhile, scientists are having full existential breakdowns in their labs, because lungs are not supposed to extract oxygen from H2O. But here we are, evolution just pulled a fast one on biology. Governments scramble to issue guidelines: do not attempt to breathe in the ocean until further notice. Spoiler: nobody listens. Beach towns become overnight meccas for amateur submariners. Real estate agents start selling underwater view apartments at 300% markup. And the scuba industry, bankrupt by lunchtime. But here's the real kicker: fish are pissed. Imagine being a tuna, just going about your tuna business, when a bunch of loud, poorly coordinated humans invade your commute. No gills, no fins, just flailing limbs and GoPros. The coral reefs, now packed with influencers doing yoga poses while hashtagging #nofilter. Of course, not everyone's thrilled. Lifeguards unionize for hazard pay. Drowning is off the table, but now they have to rescue people who swam too deep and got stage fright. Marine biologists weep as their entire careers become so last Tuesday. And Elon Musk, already selling DIY underwater breathing kits, despite the fact that we don't need them anymore. So what happens next? Do we drain the oceans from overbreathing? Do dolphins file a class action lawsuit against humanity for being terrible roommates? And most importantly, does this mean we can finally drink soup through our noses? Stick around. The water's fine, and apparently, breathable. By day 3, the novelty starts wearing off. People realize breathing underwater comes with some unexpected side effects. Like the fact that every conversation now sounds like you're talking through a mouthful of soup. Try ordering coffee underwater. The barista just hands you a soggy bagel and calls it a submerged latte. The medical community is in shambles. Doctors can't decide if this counts as a miracle or a pandemic. Emergency rooms fill up with people who inhaled too much pool water and now smell like chlorine for life. The CDC releases a vague statement: avoid breathing in hot tubs until further research is conducted. Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies rush to market underwater allergy medication, because apparently, pollen still finds a way to ruin everything. Real estate markets go insane. Beachfront property, old news. The new status symbol is abyss front housing. People start squatting in sunken ships, calling it rustic charm. Home improvement stores can't keep waterproof TVs in stock. And good luck finding a contractor willing to install a kitchen 50 feet below sea level. The liability waivers are longer than the Titanic wreckage. The military-industrial complex has a field day. Navy SEAL training gets downgraded to a weekend seminar called "So You Want to Be a Fish?" Arms dealers start selling waterproof guns to paranoid preppers who swear the crabs are getting aggressive. And Russia accidentally declares war on a school of tuna after misinterpreting their sonar signals. Religious groups splinter into factions. Some call it a divine blessing. Others claim it's clearly the work of Satan, citing that one Bible verse about the waters becoming breathable, or whatever. A new cult emerges worshipping a half-man, half-clownfish messiah named Bubbles the Redeemer. Their holy text, basically just the script from Finding Nemo with some extra commandments about proper snorkel etiquette. Meanwhile, the tourism industry pivots hard. Disney announces Atlantis World, before realizing they'd have to pay employees in oxygen tanks. Cruise ships now offer all-you-can-breathe buffet packages. And that one guy who married a mermaid in 2018. Turns out she was just a woman in a costume, but now he's suing for fraud because she should have known this was coming. Scientists make a horrifying discovery: human lungs aren't filtering salt properly. The first, human jerky, cases appear as overenthusiastic ocean breathers start crystallizing from the inside out. The Surgeon General recommends moderation in underwater breathing, like we're talking about red wine instead of a fundamental evolutionary leap. And in a quiet lab somewhere, a marine biologist stares at a tank of very confused goldfish. "Well," she sighs, "guess we're roommates now." The fish do not look pleased. Week 2 of what scientists are reluctantly calling the aquatic revelation brings its own set of complications. The world quickly learns that just because we can breathe underwater doesn't mean we necessarily should at all times. Office workers show up to meetings soaking wet after taking the scenic route through the building's decorative fountain. Gym class becomes a nightmare of trying to play basketball while floating 3 feet above the court. The food industry faces unprecedented challenges. Underwater restaurants boom, but chefs struggle with basic physics. You haven't lived until you've watched a soufflé collapse in slow motion beneath 3 meters of saltwater. Delivery apps now offer depth-adjusted pricing, charging extra for bringing your sushi down to your new underwater man cave. The USDA hastily approves a waterlogged category for food safety, while food critics develop a bizarre new rating system based on how well a dish maintains structural integrity when consumed while floating upside down. Transportation systems undergo radical changes. Subway systems flood intentionally to cut down on commute times, though passengers complain about losing their phones to the waterboarding effect of trying to text while submerged. The airline industry collapses overnight, replaced by Aqua Hopper services where you just get thrown really hard across bodies of water. Tesla releases a waterproof cybersub that nobody asked for, complete with breakable roof windows for that authentic drowning experience. Social norms disintegrate rapidly. First dates now frequently involve awkward silences punctuated by streams of bubbles. Fashion designers create drip dry chic collections that somehow look worse wet than dry. Underwater flash mobs become a public nuisance, with groups of people suddenly submerging themselves in fountains to perform lethargic synchronized swimming routines to 90s pop hits. The legal system scrambles to adapt. Maritime law now applies to your backyard pool. That guy who kept crossing your property line. Now he's trespassing through your koi pond. Divorce lawyers report a surge in cases citing irreconcilable differences in buoyancy preferences. A landmark Supreme Court case debates whether underwater breathing constitutes cruel and unusual punishment for inmates in flooded cells. Education reforms take a bizarre turn. Schools introduce mandatory underwater studies, where children learn practical skills like writing with waterproof paper and the physics of why their lunchboxes keep floating away. History classes awkwardly try to reframe human civilization as that weird dry period. Marine biology becomes the most popular major overnight, though everyone's just there for the field trips. Meanwhile, marine life continues its rebellion. Dolphins have started stealing cell phones and hiding them in coral formations. Octopuses stage elaborate escape acts from aquariums, leaving behind taunting notes written in ink. Whales develop a habit of surfacing beneath groups of floating humans, catapulting them into the air like some kind of grumpy aquatic trampoline. Scientists confirm the fish are definitely judging us. As society struggles to adapt, pioneers push exploration further. A group of influencers attempts to establish the first underwater influencer house inside a sunken cruise ship. A tech startup claims to have developed an underwater Wi-Fi network called Aqua-Fi that mostly just shocks users when they try to connect. The UN holds an emergency session to debate underwater border controls, while astronauts on the ISS look down in confusion at the suddenly very blue planet below them. Medical researchers discover another unsettling side effect: prolonged submersion appears to be causing humans to develop webbing between fingers and toes. Some embrace this as the next step in human evolution, while others frantically file their fingers like competitive swimmers. The cosmetics industry pounces on this new market with Tide Pod colored nail polishes and scale effect body glitter. In quieter moments, people begin noticing the psychological effects. The underwater world provides an eerie sense of isolation that some find peaceful and others find unsettling. Therapy offices install aquarium walls to help patients feel at home, while underwater meditation retreats promise enlightenment if you can ignore the occasional curious sea turtle poking your leg. The most unexpected consequence reveals itself when someone discovers human voices carry much further underwater. Suddenly, everyone realizes how terrible everyone else sounds when their voice is slowed and deepened by water. Karaoke bars report a 90% drop in business overnight. Opera houses experiment with underwater performances, though the results mostly just scare nearby marine life. 1 month into humanity's new aquatic existence, we've officially entered the phase where the initial excitement has worn off and the weird realities have settled in. The first underwater babies are being born, sparking intense debate about whether they should be delivered in specialized birthing pools or just tossed into the ocean like sea turtles. Parenting blogs are flooded with contradictory advice about whether baby's first breath should be air or water. The job market has undergone a radical transformation. Scuba instructors have reinvented themselves as submersion consultants, charging outrageous fees to teach people how to walk underwater without floating away. Construction workers demand quadruple pay for underwater welding jobs, despite now having the ability to take breathing breaks whenever they want. Office jobs now require minimum depth tolerance, as more companies move operations below sea level to avoid real estate taxes. Sports have become simultaneously more exciting and completely ridiculous. The NBA introduces underwater basketball where the slow-motion jumps look impressive until you realize everyone is just struggling against buoyancy. Soccer matches now feature the bizarre spectacle of players occasionally floating up to the surface mid-game. The Olympics hastily adds new categories including deep-sea marathon walking, and synchronized drowning, which is just regular synchronized swimming but with more dramatic facial expressions. The entertainment industry has pivoted hard. Movie theaters now feature submerged viewing areas where the audience floats in giant saltwater tanks. Popcorn comes in special waterproof bags that inevitably fail, leaving patrons surrounded by floating kernels. Underwater film sets become notorious for directors, tempers flaring even worse than usual. It turns out yelling at actors is less effective when your voice sounds like a slowed-down recording of a drunk walrus. Romantic relationships face new challenges. The dating scene now includes awkward questions like, do you prefer shallow breathers or deep-sea divers? Breakups happen more dramatically when one partner can literally drown their sorrows. Wedding planners offer underwater ceremonies complete with floating veils and slow-motion first kisses that mostly result in water up the nose. Marriage counselors report a surge in couples fighting about proper underwater snoring etiquette. The fashion world continues its descent into madness. Swimwear has become formal wear, while business suits now come with integrated flotation devices. High-end designers showcase collections featuring live seaweed accessories that require constant misting. The Met Gala's aquatic elegance theme results in celebrities arriving in elaborate bubble suits that immediately pop upon contact with water, leaving them floating awkwardly in designer gowns that now resemble soggy paper towels. Global politics takes a turn for the absurd. Nations begin claiming vast underwater territories, leading to diplomatic incidents when someone accidentally breathes across an invisible border. The UN forms a new underwater peacekeeping force that mostly just retrieves lost snorkels. A small island nation attempts to solve rising sea levels by declaring itself the world's first fully submerged country, though tourism suffers when visitors realize their luxury underwater hotel is just a repurposed submarine with bad Wi-Fi. Environmental impacts become impossible to ignore. Coral reefs that survived climate change now face new threats from hordes of clumsy human visitors. Scientists discover sunscreen residue forming strange new compounds when mixed with deep-sea pressure. Conservationists plead with the public to stop adopting wild sea creatures as pets, though this does little to stop the trend of people trying to ride manatees to work. The tech industry's solutions create more problems than they solve. Waterproof smartphones prove useless when no one can hear you scream underwater. Fitness trackers now count depth gained instead of steps, leading to office workers obsessively bobbing up and down at their desks. A much-hyped underwater social media platform called Glub Glub fails spectacularly when users realize typing with wet fingers is even more frustrating than autocorrect. As people spend more time submerged, strange biological adaptations begin appearing. Some develop a faint bioluminescence after extended deep-sea exposure, leading nightclub owners to recruit them as living disco balls. Others report growing small patches of algae on their skin that dermatologists can't decide whether to treat or cultivate. The first cases of reverse drowning occur when people forget they can't breathe air properly anymore and panic upon surfacing. The most profound change might be in how we perceive time. The slow, weightless existence underwater makes hours feel like minutes, while the surface world seems unbearably fast-paced. Philosophers debate whether this new temporal experience represents enlightenment or just oxygen deprivation. Religious leaders claim it's proof of divine intervention, while physicists argue it's just water pressure affecting our internal clocks. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the Pacific, a group of octopuses has begun stacking discarded human belongings into strange structures that marine biologists swear resemble primitive shelters. When approached, the octopuses immediately stop and pretend to be interested in nearby rocks. No one wants to acknowledge what this might mean. 6 months into our watery evolution, civilization has split into two distinct factions, the drylanders clinging stubbornly to surface life and the Pelagians who've fully embraced their inner merfolk. The rivalry makes the old console wars look tame by comparison. Drylanders mock Pelagians for their permanent pruned fingers and seaweed hairstyles, while Pelagians dismiss Drylanders as dust breathers who refuse to accept progress. The infrastructure challenges have reached comical proportions. Underwater cities keep floating to the surface because architects forgot basic physics. Fire departments have been replaced by current control units that chase down rogue whirlpools threatening neighborhoods. The Postal Service introduced waterproof mailbags that work perfectly, except when carrier dolphins mistake them for toys and abscond with entire zip codes worth of letters. Culinary arts have taken a surreal turn. Top chefs create multi-course meals meant to be eaten while suspended upside down in dining pools. Food critics struggle to describe textures where crunchy and soggy become the same thing. The farm-to-table movement now means watching your salad grow in real time on nearby hydroponic walls as you eat. And in a tragic twist, sushi restaurants face protests from tuna who recognize their cousins on the menu. Education has become an exercise in creativity. Schools struggle to keep textbooks from becoming bloated waterlogged messes. Math teachers demonstrate buoyancy principles by having students calculate how many classmates it would take to anchor their runaway classroom to the ocean floor. History lessons about ancient land wars seem increasingly irrelevant to children who've never experienced unassisted walking. The medical field faces bizarre new challenges. Dry lung syndrome afflicts those who spend too much time on land, while pressure palsy causes underwater dwellers to develop a permanent squint. Dentists report an epidemic of sea life-inspired grill damage from people trying to open clams with their teeth. The first underwater hospital has already been sued when a surgeon's scalpel floated away mid-operation and was swallowed by a passing fish. Workplace dynamics have transformed in unexpected ways. Water cooler gossip now literally happens around water coolers submerged in office pools. HR departments struggle to define what constitutes appropriate underwater business attire. The 5-day workweek has been replaced by 3-day title rotations because nobody has the attention span to work longer underwater. Corporate retreats have become literal retreats to deeper waters where middle managers can scream frustrations into the void. Social media influencers have taken aquatic lifestyle to disturbing extremes. The Mermaid Challenge has participants sewing their legs together before remembering they still need to use the bathroom. Extreme depth bloggers push limits until their videos become incomprehensible mumbles through nitrogen narcosis. A viral trend of coral makeovers damages fragile ecosystems before marine biologists intervene with very strongly worded signs. International relations grow increasingly tense. Disputes erupt over underwater resource rights as nations realize their continental shelves contain valuable, human-compatible breathing zones. The first underwater border skirmish occurs when a snorkeling tourist accidentally inhales across disputed waters. The UN responds by creating a new international waters classification called Shared Respiratory Zones, which satisfies no one. Religious institutions face existential questions. Baptisms lose their symbolic power when everyone spends half their day submerged. Creationists and evolutionists engage in heated debates about whether humans were always meant to return to the sea. New Age spiritualists claim to channel ancient aquatic deities who mostly complain about human littering. Scientists make a startling discovery: prolonged underwater habitation appears to be activating dormant DNA sequences. Some individuals develop enhanced low-light vision while others display increased resistance to water pressure. A controversial research paper suggests humans may be reverting to an amphibious state not seen since our evolutionary ancestors crawled onto land. Creationists and evolutionists both claim this proves their theories. The most unexpected consequence emerges in the arts. Underwater ballet performances gain critical acclaim for their ethereal beauty, though dancers must be careful not to float into the audience. Symphony orchestras experiment with hydrophones to create haunting new sounds. Painters develop a technique using floating pigments that creates masterpieces visible only from certain angles underwater. Meanwhile, reports surface of mysterious structures appearing in deep trenches, geometric formations that couldn't be natural but show no signs of human construction. When investigators descend to examine them, their equipment malfunctions in strange ways. The structures remain unexplained, though conspiracy theorists insist they're clearly alien welcome mats. Governments classify all research, which only fuels wilder speculation. As humanity adapts to this new existence, fundamental questions remain. Are we becoming something new or returning to something old? Is this the future or just a temporary detour in our evolutionary path? And perhaps most pressing, when you can breathe anywhere, where do you truly call home? The one-year anniversary of what scientists now call the Great Immersion arrives with all the fanfare of a wet firework. Celebration events are held simultaneously on beaches and beneath them, leading to awkward moments when drylanders and Pelagians accidentally make eye contact through the waves. A commemorative stamp is issued featuring a human and fish exchanging uneasy glances. It sells out immediately to collectors who may or may not actually exist. The housing market has reached peak absurdity. Luxury underwater domes promise authentic surface living experiences, complete with artificial sunlight and simulated rain. Meanwhile, abandoned skyscrapers are repurposed as vertical coral reefs, their windows busted out to allow fish to commute between floors. The first underwater homeowners association forms, immediately devolving into arguments about proper jellyfish deterrence and whether glowing anglerfish count as acceptable porch lighting. Transportation logistics have become a nightmare. Submarine traffic jams form around popular marine canyons during rush hour. Bicycle lanes are replaced with current lanes, where swimmers hitch rides on passing turtles. The airline industry attempts a comeback with aero-aquatic hybrids, planes that ditch in water intentionally, but passengers revolt when they realize the in-flight meal is just whatever seaweed got sucked into the engines. The entertainment industry continues its descent into liquid madness. Reality TV explodes with hits like So You Think You Can Swim and The Real Merpeople of Atlantis*, a blockbuster superhero movie featuring the human sponge, flops when test audiences can't tell if it's satire or sincere. Broadway stages are now massive water tanks where actors perform Shakespeare with dramatic bubble effects. Hamlet's soliloquy takes on new meaning when delivered through an oxygen regulator. Social dynamics have shifted in strange ways. Small talk now revolves around comparing pressure tolerance and sharing tips for removing brine smell from clothing. Dating profiles specify preferred depth ranges and whether one is surface curious. The concept of personal space has dissolved, literally, as water carries body odors further than anyone anticipated. Psychologists coined the term aquasocial anxiety to describe the discomfort some feel when surrounded by too many floating strangers. Science makes shocking breakthroughs. Marine biologists discover human presence has triggered rapid evolution in sea life. Octopuses now mimic human swimming patterns to steal snacks more effectively. Geneticists confirm some humans are developing transparent eyelids like deep-sea fish, though the condition mainly just makes people look perpetually sleepy. The Nobel Committee debates whether to create a new wet sciences category or just hose down the existing prizes. The workplace evolves in unexpected directions. Office buildings install decompression chambers, where stressed workers can scream without disturbing marine life. New corporate wellness programs focus on preventing barnacle buildup and maintaining proper gill hygiene. A controversial management trend called deep leadership emerges, where executives make decisions at crushing depths to prove their mental toughness. It works until someone forgets to check their oxygen mix. Sports enter a golden age of absurdity. Underwater rugby becomes an Olympic sport despite looking like a group therapy session for angry otters. Extreme ironing now includes a deep-sea division where competitors press shirts near hydrothermal vents. The X Games introduce free-fall cliff diving, where participants must complete tricks while sinking slowly enough for cameras to capture. most just end up flailing like startled squid. Food innovation reaches new heights, or depths. Molecular gastronomists create dishes that change flavor based on water pressure, though most just taste like regret. The farm-to-table movement now includes reef to plate, dining where your meal might literally swim away if you don't eat fast enough. A controversial sushi chain called Still Breathing serves fish that stare judgmentally at diners through the display glass. Governments struggle to maintain order. New laws require respiratory zoning permits for public water spaces. Tax codes become incomprehensible as they try to account for three-dimensional underwater property boundaries. Voting booths are replaced with floating ballot stations that inevitably drift into neighboring districts, accidentally turning tide pool maintenance into a national election issue. Art takes a liquid turn. Sculptures now incorporate living coral that grows and changes the artwork over time. Underwater graffiti becomes a problem when currents carry spray paint particles for miles. A controversial performance artist lives submerged for a full year in a glass tank outside City Hall. Most just find it creepy when he stares at them during lunch breaks. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, a research team makes an unsettling discovery. Strange metallic structures pulse with faint light in impossible geometric patterns. When touched, they emit sounds suspiciously similar to human speech played backward, though this might just be the pressure affecting divers' minds. Governments scramble to contain the news while simultaneously funding more expeditions. The structures don't appear on any sonar scans, yet they're clearly visible to the naked eye. Conspiracy theories flood the internet. Some claim these are ancient alien artifacts reacting to human presence, others insist they're just really advanced lost Amazon packages. The only consensus, whatever they are, they weren't there before humans started breathing underwater. And they seem to be multiplying. As society adapts to this new normal, existential questions bubble to the surface. What does it mean to be human when half your life happens in another element? Are we guests in the ocean or just particularly clumsy new residents? And perhaps most importantly, when your whole world is water, does anyone really notice if you cry? 18 months into humanity's aquatic adventure, an unsettling pattern emerges: we're becoming too good at this. Children born after the Great Immersion develop webbed digits and nictitating membranes without medical intervention. Their first words often bubble out as perfect dolphin whistles that leave linguists equal parts fascinated and terrified. Elementary schools now have dryland observation days, where kids visit surface museums to gawk at relics like umbrellas and rain boots behind glass cases labeled obsolete weather technology. The economy has fully adapted in ways that would make pre-immersion economists weep. A new cryptocurrency called Tidecoin fluctuates based on ocean current strength. The service industry thrives on depth deliveries, where gig workers schlep packages between underwater neighborhoods. Tipping etiquette remains unclear when both parties are weightless. Surprisingly, the mattress industry booms as people discover nothing beats surface napping after weeks of aquatic floating. Tempur-Pedic markets anti-buoyancy models with mixed success. Urban planning reaches new levels of creativity. Cities expand downward in spiraling reef structures where zoning laws become three-dimensional nightmares. Architects design buildings with current breaks to prevent residents from waking up in another neighborhood. The first underwater traffic lights are installed at busy marine intersections, though sea turtles ignore them with the same disregard as jaywalking New Yorkers. Scientific discoveries come at a disorienting pace. Researchers confirm human bone density is decreasing. We're literally becoming more buoyant as a species. Marine biologists document the first cases of cleaner shrimp setting up dental practices on human divers. A controversial study suggests prolonged underwater living might be extending human lifespans, if only because it's impossible to smoke cigarettes at depth. The fashion world embraces its aquatic future with questionable results. Designers debut living fabric, made from specially cultivated sea silk that changes color based on mood. Unfortunately, most emotions translate to varying shades of algae green. Waterproof watches become obsolete when everyone realizes time moves differently underwater anyway. The most sought-after accessory. Vintage snorkels sold as ironic retro fashion statements. Entertainment takes a surreal turn. Virtual reality headsets now simulate dryland experiences that terrify younger generations. Imagine paying to experience the horror of wind blowing through your hair. A popular streaming series follows surface explorers documenting abandoned shopping malls, their commentary baffled by concepts like food courts and escalator maintenance. The music industry pivots to hydrophones, producing haunting melodies best appreciated while suspended in complete darkness. Social structures continue evolving in unexpected ways. Depth privilege becomes a heated debate topic as those who can comfortably inhabit deeper zones gain economic advantages. Underwater weddings feature elaborate bubble rings that inevitably pop at the worst moment. Funeral practices shift to sea resting, ceremonies where the departed are placed in coral memorial gardens, though occasionally they float back up during important visits. The culinary world faces new ethical dilemmas. Vegan restaurants struggle when diners develop unexpected cravings after swimming too close to schools of fish. Molecular gastronomists create air pops, flavored oxygen capsules that provide surface food nostalgia. A controversial farm-to-table movement emerges where restaurants grow ingredients on willing human volunteers, leading to the first lawsuits over unauthorized back-air herb gardens. Global politics grows increasingly liquid. The United Nations votes to relocate its headquarters to a neutral buoyancy zone. Border disputes escalate when entire floating neighborhoods drift into contested waters overnight. A new political movement called the Tidal Party gains traction with its centrist platform of just going where the current takes us. Their campaign slogan, "Don't rock the boat," mainly because it's probably someone's house now. Technology races to keep up with aquatic life. Waterproof smartphones now feature depth typing, where pressure activates different keyboard functions. Unlocking your phone requires diving to precisely 32.8 feet. Social media platforms introduce current check-ins that track your underwater drift patterns. The much-hyped Aquanet promises high-speed internet through whale song frequencies, delivering speeds slightly faster than 1998 dial-up. Meanwhile, the mysterious deep-sea structures continue baffling scientists. Their metallic surfaces reflect light in impossible ways, appearing simultaneously matte and reflective. Strange symbols pulse across their surfaces in patterns that almost resemble language, if language was developed by something that thinks in 4 dimensions. The most disturbing discovery: some structures now display perfect human faces when viewed from specific angles, their expressions caught between warning and welcome. Religious institutions grapple with profound questions. Baptisms lose meaning when everyone lives in perpetual immersion. The Vatican quietly updates its doctrine to classify humans as temporarily amphibious creatures. New faiths emerge worshipping the deep-sea structures as either divine messengers or incredibly advanced real estate listings. As humanity adjusts to this fluid existence, psychologists note rising cases of depth dysphoria, the unease of not knowing whether you truly belong to land or sea. Surface nostalgia becomes a generational divide, with older folks reminiscing about rain while youths roll their translucent eyelids. The most pressing question remains: are we evolving into something new, or just remembering something ancient? And in the darkest trenches, the structures continue their silent watch. Recent expeditions report hearing vibrations through submarine hulls, rhythmic pulses that match nothing in nature. When played back at slowed speeds, some claim to detect patterns resembling a countdown. Governments insist it's just equipment malfunction. The structures, of course, offer no explanation. They simply wait, observing, as humanity dances ever deeper into their domain. 2 years after humanity gained the ability to breathe underwater, the world has divided into 3 distinct civilizations: the surfacers clinging to dry land, the Pelagians thriving below the waves, and the amphibians constantly caught between both worlds. This new societal trifecta creates tensions that make pre-immersion political divisions look like friendly playground squabbles. The surfacer movement gains momentum as studies reveal prolonged underwater living causes unexpected side effects: permanent blue tint to skin, increased susceptibility to jellyfish stings, and in rare cases, developing an irresistible urge to nibble on kelp. Surface enclaves implement moisture checkpoints, where security scans for gill development. Ironically, these dry zones now use more water than ever for their protective moats and humidity farms. Oceanic architecture enters its Baroque phase. Entire cities are grown from genetically modified coral that builds itself according to algorithmic patterns. The first underwater skyscraper reaches 50 stories tall before engineers realize they built it upside down. Home decor trends favor natural pressure, designs where walls are lined with slowly crushing water bottles to simulate deep-sea environments, the ultimate status symbol being when they implode just right. The legal system undergoes its most radical overhaul since Hammurabi. New, liquid property laws account for the fact that your front yard might drift 3 miles while you sleep. Maritime courts face backlogs of cases involving fish trespassing, accidental krill harvesting, and disputes over who owns the bubbles you exhale. The first underwater divorce settlement includes custody arrangements for a prized piece of driftwood. Education systems struggle to keep up. History textbooks now devote equal space to terrestrial and marine civilizations. Science classes teach subaquatic physics, where students learn why their homework always floats away. The most popular field trip: visits to abandoned surface prisons to study that weird time humans kept other humans in cages. Cultural expressions evolve in surprising ways. Underwater ballet develops a controversial new form performed at crushing depths where movements appear graceful only when played back at quarter speed. A new musical genre called pressure wave uses the sounds of creaking submarine hulls as percussion. The best-selling novel, Moby Maybe, reimagines the whale hunt from the perspective of very confused fish. The sporting world reaches peak absurdity. Underwater rugby introduces depth charges as legitimate defensive strategy. Extreme ironing now has a hydrothermal vent division. The Olympics debut synchronized sinking, though judges struggle to score athletes who unconsciously develop neutral buoyancy mid-routine. Surfacing unexpectedly during competition leads to instant disqualification. Cuisine continues its liquid transformation. Michelin introduces a water-resistant guidebook that rates restaurants on depth compatibility and current resistance. The farm-to-table movement becomes seamount to seatable, as chefs harvest ingredients directly from active underwater volcanoes. A controversial sushi trend serves fish so fresh it's still making angry eye contact. Medical science makes breakthroughs no one expected. Doctors discover human lungs now host symbiotic algae that provide supplemental oxygen. The first trans-species surgery successfully grafts electric eel organs onto a human patient. He now charges smartphones by coughing. Psychiatrists identify a new condition called submersion dysmorphia, where patients insist they should have gills despite all evidence. Technology races to adapt. Smartphones now project holographic keyboards visible in murky water. Social media platforms introduce current check-ins, showing exactly how far you've drifted from home. The much-hyped Aquatic delivers internet through whale song frequencies. Speeds remain terrible, but the ambience is terrific. Meanwhile, the deep-sea structures begin changing. Their metallic surfaces now ripple like liquid mercury when observed for extended periods. Expedition teams report hearing vibrations that synchronize with human brainwaves, inducing vivid hallucinations of ancient civilizations. Most disturbing are the new echo chambers, where divers report conversations with themselves, except the reflections know things the originals don't. Governments struggle to contain panic as the structures begin emitting low-frequency pulses exactly matching the rhythm of human heartbeats. Religious groups declare this proof of divine connection, while scientists frantically search for rational explanations. The pulses grow stronger each day, now detectable by surface seismographs. Their purpose remains unknown, but their timing suggests something is counting down. As humanity stands at this aquatic crossroads, philosophers ponder whether we're witnessing evolution or revelation. Children born with full-body bioluminescence ask why the elders fear the dark. The oceans grow warmer even as the deep structures grow colder. And beneath it all, the pulses continue, not loud enough to alarm, but too regular to ignore. A reminder that whatever humanity has become, we may not be the ones deciding what comes next. 30 months into the aquatic age, humanity faces an identity crisis deeper than the Mariana Trench. Children born underwater exhibit startling mutations: translucent eyelids that blink sideways, vocal cords that produce perfect whale song mimicry, and an instinctive understanding of ocean currents that puts marine biologists to shame. These Homo aquaticus youngsters regard surface dwellers with the same pity one reserves for obsolete technology. The global economy has transformed into something unrecognizable. Seashells re-emerge as currency after cryptocurrency crashes spectacularly. Tidecoin's value literally evaporated. Underwater real estate speculation runs wild, with prime locations being hydrothermal vent neighborhoods boasting natural heating. The tourism industry collapses when people realize no vacation beats simply drifting wherever the current takes you. Urban planning reaches new heights of absurdity. Cities now expand vertically through the water column like underwater skyscrapers. The wealthy occupy top levels with easy surface access while lower classes endure increasing pressure, literally and socially. Elevator music has been replaced by soothing dolphin clicks, though no one can agree if it's calming or just reminds them of their dental hygienist. Scientific discoveries accelerate at terrifying speed. Researchers confirm human DNA now incorporates genetic material from over 200 marine species, though how this happened remains hotly debated. Marine biologists make the unsettling discovery that octopuses have started incorporating human artifacts into their gardens, arranging plastic debris in disturbingly ritualistic patterns. The Nobel Prize in Medicine goes to the researcher who proved human tears now have the same salinity as the surrounding ocean. The arts flourish in strange new directions. Underwater opera reaches its zenith with a production of The Little Mermaid, performed at crushing depths where singers' voices distort into haunting whale-like melodies. Abstract painters develop a technique using controlled algae blooms that change color based on the viewer's emotional state. A controversial performance artist lives inside a whale's stomach for a month, emerging with what he claims are profound insights but mostly just smells terrible. Social structures undergo radical shifts. Traditional family units dissolve as children physically adapt to different depth zones than their parents. Marriage ceremonies now include pressure compatibility tests, administered by licensed oceanographers. Funeral rites have transformed into elaborate coral reef seeding ceremonies where the departed literally become part of the marine ecosystem. Cuisine continues evolving beyond recognition. Food critics develop a rating system based on how well a dish maintains its shape when consumed while upside down. High-end restaurants serve meals inside actual air bubbles that diners must quickly consume before they pop. The vegan movement faces an existential crisis when studies prove plants respond to being eaten with distress signals detectable in water, leading to the rise of mineral-based diets, consisting entirely of rocks. Global politics becomes increasingly fluid. The United Nations relocates to a neutral buoyancy zone that constantly drifts to avoid territorial disputes. Border conflicts erupt when entire underwater neighborhoods stray into contested waters. A new political philosophy called fluid governance gains traction, proposing laws should change as easily as ocean currents. Its opponents argue it's just an excuse for politicians to never take a firm stance. Technology struggles to keep pace with biological adaptation. Waterproof smartphones now project holograms visible in murky water, though autocorrect remains hopeless against webbed fingers. Social media platforms introduce current check-ins that track users' drift patterns. The most popular filter adds cartoon bubbles to your selfies. The much-anticipated Aquanet delivers internet through whale song frequencies, offering speeds slightly faster than 1990s dial-up. Meanwhile, the deep-sea structures begin active communication. Their metallic surfaces now display complex patterns that translate into mathematical concepts humanity hasn't discovered yet. Expedition teams report the structures respond to human brain activity, projecting personalized imagery that dredges up forgotten memories. Most disturbingly, the structures have started reproducing, with new formations appearing precisely where human populations are densest. As the structures' pulses grow stronger, measurable effects emerge. Human brain scans show increased activity in previously dormant regions when near the structures. Marine life behavior changes dramatically. Dolphins start gathering near the structures in what appears to be ceremonial fashion. And in isolated reports, divers claim to hear voices from the structures, not in any known language, but somehow perfectly understood. Governments oscillate between panic and awe. Military forces establish observation zones around the structures that suspiciously resemble siege positions. Religious leaders declare the simultaneous birth of 17 new messiahs, all claiming to understand the structure's purpose. Scientists propose increasingly desperate theories, from alien technology to ancient human civilization remnants to trans-dimensional plumbing. The most troubling development comes from the structures themselves. They've begun projecting three-dimensional images of human cities, not as they are now, but as they might become. These visions show breathtaking underwater metropolises harmoniously blended with marine ecosystems. The images always conclude with the same cryptic symbol, a human figure mid-transformation, half flesh and half something else. As humanity stands at this evolutionary crossroads, one question looms largest. Are the structures showing us a possible future, or instructing us how to build it? And more importantly, do we have any choice but to follow? The oceans grow warmer, the structures grow more active, and humanity grows increasingly unlike its former self. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain: there's no going back to the surface now. 3 years after humanity first took that fateful breath underwater, the world has transformed beyond recognition. The surface is now dotted with abandoned cities slowly being reclaimed by nature, their skyscrapers covered in vines and their streets home to more fish than humans. Meanwhile, beneath the waves, a new civilization thrives, one that has adapted so completely to aquatic life that many struggle to remember what oxygen even tasted like. The final stage of our transformation reveals itself in startling ways. Children born in the depths now possess fully functional bioluminescence, their skin glowing softly in patterns that reflect their emotions. The elderly report vivid dreams of ancient underwater cities they've never seen, yet recall in perfect detail. And the deep-sea structures, they've stopped pulsing. Now, they sing. The song is unlike anything heard before, a low, resonant hum that vibrates through bone and water alike. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a background thrum in the ocean's depths. But now, it's everywhere. Scientists confirm the sound isn't just audible, it's altering human DNA at an accelerated rate. Some call it evolution, others call it guidance, a few whisper it might be an invitation. Governments, in their final act of surface world logic, attempt to regulate the unregulatable. Bans on unauthorized deep-sea humming are ignored. Research teams sent to study the structures return changed, not physically, but in ways harder to define. They speak of memories that aren't theirs, of languages never spoken by humans, of a connection to something vast and ancient. Some never return at all. The last surface holdouts finally relent, their bodies no longer able to tolerate the dry, stale air of the world above. As they slip beneath the waves for the last time, they're met not with resistance, but with open arms. The ocean, it seems, was always meant to be home. And so, humanity takes its next step, not as conquerors of the sea, but as part of it. The structures, song grows louder, clearer, as if welcoming us into a story much older than our own. Perhaps we were always meant to hear it. Perhaps we were just waiting to remember how. As for what comes next, that's a story for another dive. If you've enjoyed exploring this impossible future with us, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the unimaginable. Let us know in the comments. Would you embrace the ocean's call, or cling to the surface until the very end? Until next time, keep wondering, keep exploring, and remember, the horizon is just the beginning.